Good afternoon or good evening, everybody, depending on where you are. Thanks for joining me again. I'm going to kind of keep this one short. This is more an opinion piece, as you can tell by the title and the thumbnail I use there in danger. Um, there is something very wrong in our society today. And again, this is not that abuse and molesters and rape and violence of various types has not existed throughout history. But for years, we were a society that believed that those things were not acceptable. Those things were outside the norm. And although we couldn't prevent all of it, the understanding was that no civilized individuals would tolerate abuse, violence, molestation, assaults, etc., if you catch my drift. And regardless of where you sat in the political spectrum and what the motivations were, it was generally not acceptable. And now we've created an environment in our society because of our leaders, because they're pandering to a very small vocal group of what I can only describe as sociopaths who don't debate other adults. Instead, they screech like a 5-year old who did not get the desired candy in public places. They throw things, they spit, they act like children. These same individuals are now walking the streets of New York, randomly punching women. Um, and it's not just there. I've told this story before for those of you who are newer followers, but a coworker of mine was in Denver with his wife, middle of the day, weekday, business day, not a holiday. He was up there for a meeting. She went behind afterward and met him there, and they met some of his work colleagues at late lunch, and were walking back to their hotel, and a guy just clobbered her, and she went down. A fight ensued, and he recounted later. He was very hurt. He said, "Pete, nobody helped." He said in Canada, he was from Canada originally. He said in the country in Canada, which is probably much like the country in the US, he'd have gotten his ass beat. But instead, his wife wound up with a concussion and very severe, emotional trauma from that. She wasn't a big gal. And while he's struggling on the ground, a guy from Kentucky who was on vacation visiting his grandson who was in the college in town saw what was happening and went to assist. But all the local folks, they took out their cameras. They were videotaping and I guess to put on TikTok or Google or wherever the hell they put it. Nobody stopped. He said, "Pete, it's not like somebody was like, well, I don't know how to fight, but I'll call 911. I'll call an ambulance for you. Take some action." None of them. We are now a society of voyeurs. And I mean that in the most generic sense, not just, in a perverted sense, but we sit there and we watch things happen in real time. It's not like right now you may be sitting in your living room, maybe on your phone at a cafe, listening to me pontificate. Um, we're talking about people are physically present when things happen. People are getting hurt, people are getting punched for no reason, and it's a multi layered rot of society. We have individuals who no longer fear a consequence because we've removed it in the name of equity. But in doing so, we've probably hurt the minorities that we were trying to protect in the first place way more than if we were effectively enforcing law. Did the system need to be looked at and corrected and changed? Certainly. Absolutely. As a guy who has law enforcement in the family, as well as having been pushed around by bad cops when I was a kid, I've been on both sides of that fence. And the bottom line is there's always room for improvement. But when law enforcement basically throws its hands up and says, why are we even arresting these guys? Because they're just going to get cut loose, there's a problem. For the record, my friend's wife, who was struck on that occasion, didn't get a final trial date until a year later. And in that time, the guy was released on his own recognizance. Being released on your own recognizance creates the assumption that you actually are a coherent and civilized human being who may have done something wrong. This person was not. And in that time, he assaulted four or five other women in the exact same way. He would go and strike them and knock them down. Now it's becoming a thing. Now, apparently, there's a new game called the door kick game. Think of ding dong ditch, right? When we were kids, we rang the bell, ran away, people came out and yelled at us or made throw things at us, depending on how quick we were. Um, Now they literally would come up and try to kick in your door and run away. At least two states, the sheriffs had said, well, if you kick in a door and get a negative consequence, that just sucks for you because that was a breaking and entering at that point. But we don't think we've literally indoctrinated an entire generation post Rona to be ugly on the internet, to do outrageous things with no fear of consequence because everyone was locked down anyway. And now we've set them loose on society, and this is the award we're reaping. Um, there are people trying to justify pedophilia. There are people trying to justify abuse. Um, I find it, I don't even know how to verbalize how twisted half of the things we're seeing are. And I'm sure all of you see it. And I'm doing no justice to all of our emotions right now. But I have to tell you, watching video after video after video of different on different platforms of young women with their black eye, with their bruised face. I mean, one literally had been hit not 2 minutes before she started recording and recorded it for the sake of evidence because the person hit her and ran and nobody did anything. Um, and nobody even called the law. Our women, our children are in danger. We're allowing individuals who are clearly not or should not be out in public to do whatever it is they want. And in doing so, we've emboldened them to continue to get worse. And anyone who's studied any kind of criminology, even if you're just a student for the joy of learning things, knows that when criminals get away with certain types of crimes, they inevitably will escalate. And then they escalate more and more. Now we've inundated this nation with millions of individuals that we have never vetted. We don't know if they're gang members. We don't know if they're rapists. We don't know if they're murderers. We don't know if they're good people. We don't know. And because we don't know, we have introduced yet another volume, a multitude of variables into this country, which we already had our own problems. We had our own generator of idiocy going on in our nation, and now we have more of them. So, what do we do? What do folks like you and I do in light of this? One, protect your own, watch your own, and then watch your neighbor's child. Know your community. I don't care if they're from the States, I don't care if they're new immigrants who are got their little visa and they're now, starting their lawn mowing business or opening a bakery, whatever it is they're doing. Get to know your neighbors. Don't let language be a barrier. If you have good neighbors, regardless of what color they are, or who they came, where they came from, or who they are, or what God they pray to, or how they pray to that God, if they're not violent individuals, get to know them. Become a community. That's on every one of us. We spend a lot of time on YouTube pointing at the government as if the government could fix things. The government is just a system. We need to fix our own. We need to fix our own communities. We need to fix our own families, and we need to fix our own way of living. Take ownership of yourself and the people around you, and then lift up folks who may not understand. Show them how things should be. There's no reason that young children should be abused and people get away with it because they have money. There's no reason that women should be beaten on the street or old folks pushed into subway tracks and there's no consequences. Like I said, we can't stop all of it, but we need to set the example once again that that is not acceptable because right now According to a lot of these people, it is acceptable because you get views on TikTok, because you get views on YouTube, because you get a sponsorship by being a jackass. We need to make it so that people understand, no, that is not right, and there are consequences. The truth is, they are in danger. Our children, our mothers, our daughters, our sisters, our wives. Men are too, but less so. I promise you, people will be much less inclined to mug me than my very pretty daughter, although attacking her would probably be a very fatal incident because she's my daughter. But not every girl is like that. For every one of my daughter, there are nine others who will be victimized or could be victimized because they don't have it in them or were not shown how to understand the world around them. Own your kids, show own your kids' upbringing, I should say. Show them what's out there for the age appropriate audience, of course. You don't horrify a 6-year old, but you shouldn't pull your punches with a 19-year old. Tell them how it is appropriate for their age. Make them ready for the world around them. Get to know your neighbor. Watch your community. Go for that night walk and bring your phone charged with you. And just look and see. And if you see something that's out of place, you see someone strange in your neighbor's house who shouldn't belong there, own the moment, call law enforcement, and let them come check it out. They may find something, they may not. But we need to make our communities, our country, our societies, wherever you may live, make it clear that these kind of behaviors, this abuse, this evil, this nonsense is not acceptable, and that we as a people can do better. Again, this was purely an opinion. This really isn't a prepping video, but I want you to understand that does affect your prepping because if we have created an entire cadre of individuals who thinks that they can do whatever they want when they feel like it for no fear of consequence, and an SHTF does happen, you and I are going to have to deal with it. I cover it in my book in one of the chapters about building relationships, but I also have a chapter within the chapter, if you will, about dealing with those who are dangerous. And it's not pretty what I have to say, but it's true. We as a community need to own our shit. And it's just each one of us in a little piece every day. It starts at home. My sons knew damn well not to go and strike a woman. To my knowledge, my sons have never put hands on a woman. Uh, I mean, at least not other than training, because both are soldiers. So obviously they beat each other up there, but that's different. But in abuse, unheard of, because I took the ownership of their upbringing, because I had to be a positive, masculine, compassionate, but strong father. Mothers are the same way. Own your house, own your community. Don't put up with this shit. I'm so tired of seeing young people getting victimized and then they're confused because now this generation doesn't know what to do. So let's teach them a piece at a time, 1 minute at a time, one person at a time. That's it for this one. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for hearing me rant. I'm sure most of you agree with what I'm saying. Till next time, God bless, Godspeed, be safe, and I'll see you on the next video.